We've talked about the good bit, which is winning and making a living gambling. I mean, how do you cope with? I assume even you get them, the inevitable losing run.
Absolutely, I get them. Absolutely, I do. It's experience. I suppose I've experienced them. Maybe not losing runs, but I've experienced them in the industry as well. You can have terrible days, and you're as a trader, you're assessed on your figures. So if you knock off a couple of $100,000 in an afternoon, then that does not reflect well on you, and you have to, cope with it somehow. And then, of course, when you're working for yourself, it's more important again because it's your cash. Yeah, I'm not. I can't claim to be the sort of person who should be giving anyone advice on how to react psychologically under these circumstances. I think as I've got older, I've got a lot better at it, but I have been known to swear at the television and that kind of thing after close finishes. I actually think that can be helpful as long as you don't let it get out of control. If you just have a quick vent, and it's over within seconds and you can rebalance, that's okay. But where it can be harmful is if, for instance, if you get a race wrong and it's not bad luck or a close finish and it's just you've made a mistake, the worst thing you can do is dwell on it. Because everyone, aside from the normal run bad luck you get in racing, everyone makes mistakes as well. If you dwell on that and start talking negatively to yourself or start thinking, oh, I can't do this, I'm not cut out for it, I'm no good, that can get you into a spiral, which is hard to break. I'd like to think I don't do that anymore, but early on, when I was perhaps feeling a bit more pressure, when I was more new to it, that was a problem I had. And I haven't actually, it's something I've done on my own, not something I've gone to seek counselling for or anything, but I think just the experience of having been there and bounced back from it on more than one occasion has really helped me. And I now know that that's not the case, that it's not because I'm, not good enough at it. It's just that I've made a mistake and you just have to let it go. Same as a sportsman, if they miss an easy goal or easy putt on a golf course or something, if they start dwelling on it and spiraling downwards, it's going to have a much bigger effect than it needs to.
Okay, so is horse racing still a pleasure for you now that you do it for a living?
Yes, it is. Put it this way, I'd rather do this than anything else. It beats working, as they say. But it is a job. You're doing it, watching racing 5, 6, 7 days a week sometimes. It's like anything, it gets to be a grind, so you've got to have other interests and just ways to unwind, I think. But, for all the fact that it does become routine and a bit of a grind, it's still my favourite sport to watch. It always will be, I think. And yes, I'm very, very pleased to be able to make a living watching it and analysing it and betting on it.
Now, you mentioned that one of your coping mechanisms is maybe shouting at the TV if it goes wrong or whatever. Have you ever started to doubt your own ability in the midst of one of those bad runs? And if so, what do you do to have a word with yourself?
Yeah. Once early, I think in my first 6 months, when I first started, I actually started very well the first couple of months. Then I had a losing run. And I just paused for, I don't think it was a week, it was about 3 or 4 days. And I just pulled apart all the bets I've been having, pulled apart my form analysis techniques and just looked at what am I getting right, what am I getting wrong, what am I winning on, what am I losing on. And once you sort of analyse those things, with a bit of distance and a bit more coldly, even if you've been losing overall, you can still point to a few things and say, well, I've been doing this right and this right and this right. And I've actually been winning on this type of race and these types of bets. So that in itself gives you confidence, I think. I haven't actually had to go to that extreme of actually stopping completely for a few days since. But that certainly helped at that time. As to doubting my own ability, I probably did. I would say I had some doubts to take a measure like that, like stopping for a few days. But once I saw the outcomes of that, that gave me great confidence in myself. and I think that's stood me in good stead.
Okay, were you a winning punter when you were working for the bookmaker still? Were you using the same
Yes, but
sort of...
yes, it's a little different. I don't know if employers are allowed to do this anymore, but you had access to what all the smartest punters in Australia were backing, and you could either marry that up with your own stuff or just blindly follow them in, as I know a lot of people used to do. I think that's getting harder and harder for them to do that.
Okay,
nowadays.
Sorry, carry on.
I know, go on, yes.
So in the time that you've been pro punter, the 4 years, sort of people often say that nothing stays the same. You have to keep ahead of the game. So have you had to already adjust your strategy to keep in front?
How have I had to?
No, have you had to? Yeah, have you had to sort of adjust things to stay ahead of the game?
Yeah, I touched on it before. I was having good success it was through 17 and 18, betting the early markets and concentrating on favourites, second favourites, that end of the market anyway. And there seemed to be enough edge to just, the bracket last forever. Then when a few changes, like the taxation changes came in, margins got tighter, especially early. I tried to stick with what I was doing, and that cost me the edge. I should have realised a bit sooner, really, that the edge that had been there had dried up, and I needed to change. So I have since then changed, and it involves looking wider in the market for value. I think that's as they've compressed the prices of a lot of the favourites, then little edges have appeared a bit further out in the market, and as I said, also betting later, which is realistically when you, unless there's been an obvious mistake in the early market, that's your best opportunity to get on at a reasonable price, I think.
Okay, so let's talk. Sorry.
I was just going to say that my strategy, the one that I wanted to keep following and backing favourites and horses at that end of the market, has a massive advantage, and that is strike rate, which is great on every level, not least psychologically. When your runs of outs aren't too long, obviously your confidence isn't going to be dented as much. But if you're having to try and bet in the 10 to 1 and longer range, you are just naturally going to face longer runs of outs. Of course, the payoffs are greater when you do hit a winner in that price range, but you do have to prepare yourself for longer runs of outs.
Okay, do you operate a staking plan of sorts?
Yeah, it's more or less betting to my assessed price. So, yeah, if I have a horse marked a 6-4 chance, therefore I think it's a 40% chance, then most of the time I'm going to be having twice as much on it as a horse I've assessed 4-1, a 20% chance. So that's basically it. However, I will up the staking if there's a bigger edge. If I think something's a genuine 6-4 chance and I'm getting 3-1, for instance, I'll probably up the staking as opposed to if I was getting 7-4 or 2-1 that horse. So that's like the Kelly criterion. I don't exactly use Kelly or even a fractional Kelly like a lot of people do, but it's the same theory where I think there is a big edge there, and I'm confident in my price. I should point out there that not every horse you mark 6-4 is the same, because in some races compared to others, you're going to have more information and more solid grounding for your market. A race full of first starters or 2-year-olds or maidens isn't going to be the same as a good quality race on a Saturday. So things like that come into it. But if it's a 6-4 shot, I'm very confident in, and I can get 3-1 it, that's probably where I'm going to pull the trigger.
What sort of figures are we talking? 2, 3, 4? Your stake for stakes?
Well, you get on to win what you can. You're sort of a bit limited by what the market will stand. So it's in that region, yeah.
Okay. So what do you operate a betting bank? Do you have like a tank that you just use? And if so, what sort of percentage of your bank would you be comfortable backing per bet?
It used to be, my maximum used to be 2%, but I've upped that. I would say the absolute maximum would be 4 now, which is quite aggressive, I think. Any more than 4, I think you're sailing a bit close to the wind. But yeah, I'd say, and 4 would be unusual and rare for me. I think most of my business would be done in the 2.5 down to 0.1 range.
Okay, how many bets a week or a day would you? Is there an average figure you could come up with? Do you like to churn it around? Or are
Yeah,
you
I have been
selective?
more and more. I used to be more selective when I was concentrating on the top end of the market. Just try and pick the eyes out of a card and maybe only have two or three, not two or three, but yeah, 3 to 4 bets maybe in a day, but have a good crack at them and try and keep the ball rolling that way. But now I find myself backing multiple horses a race, most races on the day, and at bigger odds. So that gets the turnover up, but that's also, as I said, I think where the edges are these days. They have tended to be a little bit wider in the market than they used to be.
Okay, do you have
Oh,
a
so,
bet?
sorry?
No, carry on. Sorry.
I was just going to say, as to the number of bets a week, yeah, so now I'm covering 5 or 6 meetings a week, at least 10 bets at each, I'd say. So, yeah, that sort of ballpark.